Hey, what's up, you guys? This is Mike, and welcome to my channel. This channel is for real estate entrepreneurs, independent landlords, and property management professionals, and we're all about helping you grow your rental portfolio and eliminating stress while increasing your income. So if that sounds like it's you, then stick around. In this video, we're going to go into part 2 of 6 on how to buy a rental property. In this video right here, we covered step 1 of the buying process, where we qualified, we did the math to know what our budget was, we picked a place, we went through escrow, the inspection period, and we closed. So in this video, we're actually going to lay out what our prices are in line with the market, and we're going to set up our house rules. If that sounds like something you're into, then stick around to the end because we're going to start right now. So once you've got control of your property and you feel like you're at a point where you can rent it out, you still have one more step to perform before you actually start looking for tenants. It's time to set up your rental prices and expectations. So we're going to start off with the market research for how much your place should rent for. We did this in the last video, but we're going to do it again just to make sure. Maybe things have changed. Sometimes people have their property for a year or two, but now that we're actually at the point where we can list it for rent, it's time to verify that with the current market conditions. So let's review how to get comparables. Comparables, or comps, are collections of property that are similar to yours and have done a transaction similar to the one that you're about to do. So for example, you've got a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom condo in Waikiki, and you want to rent it out. To figure out what you would rent it out for, you research other 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom condos in your building, in a different building on the same floor, and a different building, same floor, but with similar amenities. For a single-family home, it's much simpler. It's the same size and general area, maybe a quarter mile away from yours. For both a condo and a single-family home, you want to look at the rented prices, not the active prices, what they actually rented for in the past 6 months or so. Back to what I was saying about amenities, what makes your place really nice to rent out? Write that down. We're going to use that later. Does your location have any special benefits? Is it close to freeways or close to buses? If you follow the instructions in my last video, you would have those, but it's time to just remember all of those since you might have gotten used to living in the property by now. Okay, next part is a quick introduction to the world of business from the point of a residential property manager. Once you start renting out your home, you are now a business owner, and it's time to understand and follow the rules of business. Between the landlord and the tenant, there's a mutual understanding of responsibilities. It's the landlord's job to keep the rental safe to live in, to provide housing that is habitable, and to make repairs in a timely manner. The tenant's responsibilities are to pay rent on time. If the tenant doesn't pay on time, it's the landlord's right to take action to end the tenancy. And it's also the tenant's responsibility to cover excessive damages beyond the wear and tear of normal daily living. If you're the landlord, you're going to give the tenant a place to stay, and the tenant, having a place to stay, is going to pay you money, and if they mess it up, then they're going to take care of that. So now that you understand the rules for a landlord-tenant relationship, it's time to understand the landlord-tenant code, and this is a real code that is both applicable in every state, but each state is different. So I like this website called AAOA. It's the American Apartment Owners Association.org website. I like this site because it gives quick answers to common questions that are applicable in every state. So for example, federal rule for discrimination for the Fair Housing Act says you can't discriminate tenants, meaning you can't deny a tenant based on their color, disability, physical and mental, familial status, national origin, race, religion, or gender. But here in Hawaii, we have additional rules, and if you discriminate based on these, then you're kind of in trouble. Age, ancestry, gender identity or expression, whether or not they have HIV, marital status, or sexual orientation. Those are additional protected classes for Hawaii, and if you deny somebody based on those, and you didn't know that was a rule because you only read the federal rule, and then you didn't know you weren't allowed to do that, then you're still in trouble. You're still liable. Like that's a huge violation, and it's just kind of like getting pulled over. Just because you don't know the law doesn't mean that the law doesn't apply to you. Consult this site, consult your local site. It usually ends in .gov or with a licensed property manager like me before you even think about talking to a tenant. So in addition to what you're going to charge the renter, you have to have an idea of what type of renter you feel comfortable inhabiting your house. We already went over what you can't discriminate on, but you can definitely discriminate based on income. If you're worried that an applicant won't be able to reliably pay to stay in your rental, to pay your rental price, it's totally okay to deny them for that. That's the idea, is you want to make sure that the people that you're putting into this property are able to pay the rent that you're charging. You'll want to set a minimum income, and that's totally up to you. I've seen metrics where the owner wants the tenant to make 40 times the rent per year. I've seen that the rent should equal no more than 40% of their gross monthly income, 40% of net monthly income, 30% net monthly income. But I've also seen exceptions if they've got a lot of savings. For example, you've got an older couple, they're retired, they just want a nice place to chill out. They don't really have a lot of income because they're retired, but they've got, a lifetime worth of savings. Do you allow smoking in your place or not smoking? For me, this is non-negotiable. I would never let a smoker in. The damages are crazy. The amount of work it takes to clean up a smoking household is way beyond what I'm willing to deal with. And smokers are not a protected class, so you don't have to rent to smokers. That being said, every now and then it happens, people smoke in your property. Some things you want to look out for if this does happen to you: replacing the HVAC system. That could be anywhere from $6,000 to $18,000. Ceilings hold cigarette smoke really well. You want to take care of those. Got to redo the paint. The smoke clings to the paint. Obviously the floors and the carpets. Got to wash the curtains. Got to wash the drapes. Got to change the air filters. Light bulbs too. The dust settles in the light bulb, heaps up, and the smell comes back. Okay, so in your application, you want to be able to verify the tenant works where they say they work. They make the amount that they claim to make, and that they're employed for the foreseeable future. As prospective landlord for this prospective tenant, you can send a written letter of notice to this person's place of employment. You can send a written letter to this person's place of employment requesting this information. In the application, you want to have a credit score minimum, tenant's full legal name, addresses for the past 2 years, social security number, so you can check their credit, date of birth, current employer, and their current landlord. So at our company, we ask for the past rental history. We want to talk to the previous landlords. We've received some pushback on that, basically from the other landlords saying they don't feel comfortable providing that information. So with our application, once we receive an application from a prospective tenant, we send the prospective tenant an additional document giving permission for the previous landlord to divulge information about their stay at their property. There's a form that we have, and we ask some questions, and we sometimes get the form back with some stuff not filled out. Hey, was the tenant, really loud, or was the tenant really rude? We call the landlord and we go, hey, you forgot to fill this out. He's like, oh yeah, I left it blank on purpose. And that just kind of tells you all you need to know. If the landlord has something to say that could potentially be used against him, it's better to just leave it blank. If you have something nice to say, of course, you just say tenant was fine. But it's usually a pretty red flag if the previous landlord leaves a blank spot about a person's character or payment history on the form that we're asking them to fill out. How many references do you want to ask for? 3 is a good number. I mean, anybody can get their friend to say, hey, I'm their employer. I think you'd have to go through a lot of effort to get 3 people to, fib a story. So 3 is good. Okay, so at this point you've got a good idea on how to set your rental price and and you also have an idea on what you're looking for, and you also have an idea of what you're looking for in a tenant and what you're allowed to look for and what you're not allowed to look for. And where you can go to look at the Landlord-Tenant Code. I mentioned the Landlord-Tenant Code because that's the most important part about this video. Know the Landlord-Tenant Code in your area before you even speak to a tenant. You don't want to be on the wrong side of a legal battle with a tenant, because in most states, the judge is going to favor the tenant, even if it's painfully obvious that the owner is in the right and the tenant is in the wrong. We're talking about damages, non-payment. Most of the time, the judge will rule with the tenant. So it's better to just make sure you're totally on your P's and Q's, document everything, do everything in written communication. Every piece of communication should be written down and recorded, either email, transcriptions, text messages. We use a service called Buildium to communicate with all of our tenants. That makes things really easy to document. So if you subscribe and gently tap the notification bell, you'll be the first to know when my next video comes out, where we're going to advertise the property online, write and review rental contracts, and do the final walkthrough. And if you like this video, please give it a like and leave a comment below with maybe something that I missed and something that I could add to the next video. Other than that, have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.